So a sticky reverb post. After a bit of time, you'll find, maybe not, but I find after a little bit of time, sitting on the post and actuating the lever to drop the post again, you occasionally get, so your weight's generally at the back of the post, and you get this friction because you're pushing the post backwards and down, so you have to kind of shift forward to get that line happening properly. And what happens is it gets quite sticky, and you kind of find yourself always having to shift forward. It's not dropping it. Yeah, you've got the lever pushed down, but it's not going anywhere. So you have to move your weight forward a little bit. Now I've just serviced this one, so it's feeling pretty mint now, but it was sticky. It was getting real sticky yesterday. So I just want to show you how to go about it. It's quite simple. Buzzy Slick Honey or RockShox Strand Butter or RockShox Dynamic Seal Grease, which is generally what RockShox uses on most of their seals like this. Now, take this collar off, and you'll find once this collar's off, it's only, it's just past hand tight. It doesn't need to be wrenched on, but you probably will need something like a shifting spanner or the right size spanner to undo it. So I'll use a shifting spanner. Just be gentle. Just gonna crack it open. So not super tight, and now I'm gonna unwind the spanner a bit to get it off, whoops, so I don't ding it, which I just did anyway. But anyway, you don't have to worry about letting air out. This isn't gonna pop or anything like that. It's just purely a seal. So unwind that, slide it up, and you can see that there's a little bit of grease around. Now, it's got 3 holes around that circumference there. Now what I do is I'll get a little bit of seal grease. So first things first, I'll clean all this up. And what I actually did this time was I got a little bit of the 0W30 fork lower lubrication oil from RockShox. And I smeared it on here, gave it a bit of a wipe off, just to make it a little slicker, up and down, see how it felt. It's not part of the process, it's just something that I wanted to try out. But anyway, so I've cleaned that off, and then got my seal grease. So RockShox Dynamic Seal Grease is what I used this time. I used Slick Honey last time. You shouldn't really be mixing your greases, but it's not the end of the world. Anyway, what I do with the seat right up the top, little smear on my finger, and I'll smear it into those holes. So a little bit in that hole, a little bit in that hole, a little bit in that hole, pushing it into the hole, and then smearing it all the way around the seal as well. And then I'll push it in to spread it in there. And then I'll go down maybe an inch or so, and it's sucked most of that grease in now. And then again, I'll get a little bit more, and I'll dab it in. I'll show you. So, just a little bit on the finger. And you got these 3 holes. So I'm going to dab a little bit in that hole. I'm going to dab a little bit in that hole. And I'm going to dab a little bit in this hole. Like I said, I've just done this, and then the excess spread around the entire circumference there. So you will find there's a little bit of play there because the seal isn't down. So it will take the grease in, and you slide that in. So now that grease is in. And then again, fill that hole. I'm not going to load it up because I've already done it. And this hole at this point of height, and then you want to slide that in there, and you're almost all the way down. Same story again, little bit, little bit, little bit. So the reason I'm doing it's in stages is it spreads the grease. I find it spreads the grease more evenly through the entire shaft. Now if you put too much in there, it's gonna obviously come all back out when you let it back up. I like these reverbs as well because you can control the speed just with the push of your finger, which is cool. You can see there's plenty of grease there overall now. But when I bring this down, nice and clean, the shaft. I will get some paper towel. Shop towel, lint-free shop towel is your best bet. This is just handy ultra paper towel. Clean everything off so it's not slippery. Tighten this down as much as you can get it by hand. And then with your tool, you're not wrenching, you're not putting any leverage on it. So when I say leverage, I mean holding it, holding it here and wrenching versus holding it here and wrenching. You don't want any leverage. You basically just want to nip it so it's a little further than hand tight, so it's not going to come undone with vibration and whatnot. Right there. So, little bit of force to undo it, but it's not going to undo easily. So, get it to there and then just give it a little bit of a nip. If you've got a torque wrench and the fittings for the torque wrench, then by all means use that. Otherwise, be delicate and spend some time. If you've got a torque wrench, spend some time calibrating your manual turning without the torque wrench and compare it with the torque wrench. So do a bolt up, especially with your head stem bolts, your handlebar bolts. Spend some time doing them up by hand, going to where you think is 4 Newton meters, set your torque wrench to 4 Newton meters, and see if it's too far or not far enough, and fine tune, and eventually you'll calibrate to how much leverage you need on an Allen key to create enough to create a certain amount of Newton meters of torque or whatever. So that's kind of how I do it. Delicate things, suspension type things, definitely recommend a torque wrench, but for most stuff, once you've calibrated, you're going to be pretty safe. So anyway, that's RockShox Reverb. That's how I service mine, or just kind of mid-term service, keeping it fresh and running smooth. And you'll find doing this, getting that grease all the way in there, so you've got a lot of grease in there now, without being excessive. Obviously, there's a lot of grease in there. There's much less friction when you've got that weight on the back, so it's just easier to go in and out. I don't recommend pushing on the back because you're eventually going to elongate the seals in here and you're going to get leaking and whatnot, and that'll create problems in the future. But grease it up, keep it running well, keep it clean as well, keep this seal clean when you wash your bike. Just kind of tidy that seal up a little bit without pushing the dirt into it, and Bob's your stepdad, so it's all good.